First up, the Las Vegas shootings. Police are still piecing together clues as to what led to the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. The death toll from Sunday's shooting has now gone up to 59, with 527 people still recovering, some of them in critical condition. Take a look. This is the suspect, the 64-year-old suspect, Stephen Paddock. He was at a hotel room where he got up on the 32nd floor and fired shots at the 22,000 people who were enjoying a music concert. Police recovered 42 weapons, 42 guns, some from his hotel room, others from his home in Mesquite, Nevada. Paddock even had ammonium nitrate in the car. Now, interestingly, Paddock did not have any history of mental illness, political discontent, or radical views, at least on social media. He had not served in the military either. Paddock fired those shots from the Mandalay Bay Hotel before turning the gun on himself before police moved in. This latest mass shooting has now sparked a debate once again on gun laws in the United States, but the White House says it is too early to talk about gun control. But those who are on the ground, eyewitnesses, describe the moment of chaos and confusion when shots rang out.
We are currently standing at 527 for individuals injured, and individuals that have died or passed away, 59. Some explosives and several thousand rounds of ammo, along with some electronic devices that we are evaluating at this point.
As this event unfolds, we have determined to this point no connection with an international terrorist group. As this investigation continues, we will continue to work with our partners to ensure that this is factually, thoroughly, and absolutely investigated.
The suspect's father, Benjamin Paddock, was on the top 10 of the FBI's most wanted list back in 1969. He was wanted after he escaped from a federal prison in Texas a year earlier for robbery. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump observed a moment of silence to honor the victims at the White House.
We are joined together today in sadness, shock, and grief. Last night, a gunman opened fire on a large crowd at a country music concert in Las Vegas, Nevada. He brutally murdered more than 50 people and wounded hundreds more. It was an act of pure evil. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security are working closely with local authorities to assist with the investigation, and they will provide updates as to the investigation and how it develops.
Well, joining us on tonight's discussion, we have journalist Jim Clancy joining us from Atlanta. Jim, great to have you on the program. Unfortunately, I'm sure in your time, you've seen many mass shootings, and this is nothing new for the United States. Now, my first question to you is, why is this not being called a terror attack?
I think people are looking at this, at least law enforcement seems to be looking at it, as not certainly an act of international terrorism. No known ties to any terrorist group. Now believe that the claim by someone purporting to be ISIS was a fraud itself, and they believe that this person was somehow or another mentally disturbed. But they really don't know yet. They can't find a motive. This seemed to be a sad little man who collected guns, who suffered the same fear and fantasy that so many other Americans seem to suffer as they collect more weaponry. And we're just counting down until the next one. An act of terror? Well, certainly the people in Las Vegas who were at that concert were terrorized.
Now, there's been a lot of speculation, perhaps, if this man, Stephen Paddock, was of a different ethnicity or a different religion or a different race. The terms radical Islamic terrorist may have quickly surfaced. That was not the case because perhaps he was Caucasian. Do you agree that perhaps that is the reason why, or is it because there's still a lot of unanswered questions and, as you pointed out, no idea on why?
Well, when it's a white male, Christian probably, we ask a lot of questions. When it's a Muslim male, we don't ask any. that's enough to indict that person and their beliefs as part of a terroristic plot.
And Jim, let me also ask you, when it comes to hotel security, I mean, how was it possible that this suspect was able to bring in that many guns? We understand that he was checked into that hotel, the Mandalay Bay Resort, last Thursday, but still such a large amount of weapons and ammunition that he was able to pile up there at that hotel. Obviously, whatever he had in his home is what he does in his own time. Whether that was his, whether it was given to him, whether it was stolen is a separate issue. You know, we sort of digress. But the fact that he was able to bring in that much ammunition, and then the smoke detector was what apparently went off, pointing police there. I mean, that also begs the question, should hotels and public places like casinos do more to prevent guns from entering their premises?
Well, he brought them in. He booked that hotel room, I believe, far in advance, number one. Number two, he brought in that weaponry over a period of days inside suitcases. Wouldn't have alarmed anyone. There is literally nothing that the hotels could really be doing other than making all of their guests come through a metal detector, searching their luggage as if they were going on an airline flight. That would be the only option there. And once he gains that high altitude, very hard to pinpoint him. As you say, he was only fingered really by the smoke detectors that went off just from the sheer amount of exhaust coming out of the weaponry that he was firing, pouring fire down on those helpless concert goers. You know, at that high angle, you know, people were yelling, "Get down, get down." You can't get down. You can't get away from it. That angle of fire is certainly one of the things that has led to this staggering toll of dead and wounded. Archith.
Such a gruesome scene to sort of digest and take a look at those innocent lives. They're all of them enjoying their time at that country music concert in Las Vegas. Jim, we'll come back to you in just a minute. Let's also now shift our attention on gun violence, which of course is back in the spotlight once again after this latest mass shooting in Las Vegas. More than 11,000 people are killed by guns and more than 23,000 people are hurt every year. In fact, in just the 9 months of this year alone, all of this according to Gun Violence Archive, a nonprofit group in the United States. Now get this, in the last 275 days of this year, the United States can count 271 mass shootings. That's almost one a day, but neither American politicians nor the media have shown any sort of urgency towards tackling the issue of gun control. Here's a report.
In August this year, Newsweek magazine reported 244 shootings in the US in 2017. This was shortly after a gunman opened fire in a public library in New Mexico, killing 2 and wounding 4. The report noted the irony, the 244th shooting when America was 240 days into the year. The report quoted the Gun Violence Archive that showed 10,223 gun deaths this year, another 20,530 gun injuries, and 1,343 unintentional shootings. With Republicans in firm control of Congress, it appears unlikely there will be any progress towards gun control. This even though some Republican congressmen were targeted by a man with a gun in June.
There's a time and place for a political debate, but now is the time to unite as a country. There's currently an open and ongoing law enforcement investigation. A motive is yet to be determined, and it would be premature for us to discuss policy when we don't fully know all the facts or what took place last night.
According to the Pew Research Center, people are in favor of curbs on the sale of weapons to the mentally ill, to those who figure on federal government no-fly or watch lists, and ensuring that private gun sales during exhibitions are done only after suitable background checks are carried out. But whatever the public may feel, Republicans and Democrats seem more preoccupied with other issues, such as whether concealed guns should be allowed and allowing teachers and officials to carry guns in schools. Even the media has been faulted for ignoring gun violence when it involves African Americans. Many say gun violence is a raging health epidemic, but the way in which the media covers it suggests double standards. Bureau Report, WION.
Well, a New York Times report says that there have been 521 mass shootings in the United States in the last 477 days. So the big question is, will Congress act finally? Well, the Democrats are seeking tougher gun laws, but Republicans are still being non-committal, saying it is just too early. So when exactly are we going to talk about gun control, and why is this gun culture so embedded in the American fabric?
Gun culture is deeply embedded in American society. The right to own and carry firearms is protected by the Second Amendment to the US Constitution. People in a third of households own a weapon. The US holds the world record of an estimated 270 to 310 million guns, an average of one per person. Around 30,000 people die by firearms, including suicide, every year in America. Mass shootings in public places are becoming more frequent, refueling the debate over America's gun laws. Each state is responsible for its own firearms rules, but these only concern licensed dealers and gunsmiths. 40% of transactions, private sales, are not affected. Former US President Barack Obama repeatedly tried to introduce a ban on assault weapons and more stringent background checks on gun buyers. The powerful US gun lobby, NRA, is firmly against any clampdown or restrictions to citizens' rights to own guns.
All right, let's bring Jim Clancy back into the conversation. Jim, why is it that we continue to see a slew of shootings in the United States? I mean, those stats really speak for themselves. 273 shootings already this year, and 275 days have passed. I mean, when is enough is enough?
Well, never. That is the view of the NRA. This is the price of freedom, in their view, the freedom to carry and to own firearms. It's all part of this fantasy. It's fear in a fantasy, the fear that the others are going to come into the white suburbs, and one way or another they are going to take away all that has been accumulated, and you must defend your home and family against it. And the fantasy of the American hero, who, after all, is very well armed. These people see themselves as somehow more patriotic, somehow more loving of God and family than others, because they are willing to stand up for them and fight for what is theirs. But all of this ends up in very sad ways, where people are then enabled, first of all, the most gun violence, the most deaths every year from suicides. It enables people to take their own lives. The suicide rates in other countries have dropped by half when they instituted more gun control. The United States, though, unlikely to follow it. And don't blame just the Republicans. It's the Democrats, many of the Democrats as well. The ownership and the use of weaponry in the United States is deeply ingrained. It's going to be very difficult to overturn. You know, if going into a school and shooting elementary-aged children isn't moving the Congress, certainly even attacking a country western concert in Las Vegas isn't going to move them either. We sit and we watch the carnage and wonder, when will we wake up? And when will the next record be set for the worst mass shooting in American history?
And that's the surprising question. I mean, you know, we see this time and time again, and it seems like the media knows what to do. The police know what to do. It's pretty much the same story, just a new city, a new suspect, and a new incident, and unfortunately different victims, sadly, paying the price of this. I mean, what do the politicians need to sit down and do, whether it's Democrats or Republicans? It really seems like it is high time that the United States really gets a grip when it comes to Las Vegas or Orlando or Newton or Newtown or Aurora, you know, any of these cities, because it just keeps happening time and time again.
Right, and we expect that, you know, the model of this killing spree will probably be repeated by someone else. There's something sad and sick about the individual who believes that, you know, there's no meaning to my life. I will give it meaning by, again, this heroic image of the American male that is heavily armed and somehow taking all of these others out with them. If that's not terrorism, you know, I don't know what is. What is going to motivate and move the Congress to pass these gun laws? We don't know. You know, the modifications to those semi-automatic weapons that allowed him to pour so much fire into that crowd were both legal. They were legal on both of the guns. Why does anyone need that? And there's a lot of questions that are going to be asked.
Could
But
the United States perhaps,
answer.
sorry to interrupt you there, Jim, in the essence of time, could the United States perhaps learn from other countries? I mean, Australia had a mass shooting in 1996, the Port Arthur massacre in Tasmania. They banned guns, and they've never seen any kind of mass shooting since. I've lived in the United States for almost 20 years. Almost every year we see something like this. And again, we keep having these discussions, but what really is going to solve the problem?
Oh, they're becoming more frequent. And yes, gun laws could change it and change it dramatically. But I don't think that many Americans seriously think it's going to happen.
Right.
Surprise me.
All right. Of course, we're going to continue the conversation in just a bit. Now, switching gears, we've talked about the terror angle. We've talked about the gun control angle. Then the other issue we want to bring about when it comes to the Las Vegas shootings is false information, especially online. Tech giants like Facebook, Twitter, and Google have been trying and striving to curb down on fake news on their platforms, but their efforts don't seem to be serious enough. Now, while these companies are gearing up to fight against terrorism, they unfortunately fell a little short, especially when it came to dealing with fake news as it pertained to the Las Vegas massacre. Reports say Google offered a search result from a shady online forum called 4chan, which named the wrong man as the killer. Not only this, Facebook's safety check feature also found to be spreading false information about victims and the shooter. Twitter, on the other hand, displayed rumors and false information about missing individuals. These tech giants and their emergency services are sometimes helpful, but unfortunately, in situations like this, they do more damage than good. Jim Clancy, let me bring you back into the conversation again. These tech giants, people turn to social media. That didn't exist perhaps 20 years ago. You have at your fingertips Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Google, people using good features like the safety check. But of course, it also implicates innocent people and creates hysteria online. I mean, I saw the Las Vegas Police Department saying, stop recording, stop live streaming, stop doing this. You're hurting the investigation process. Perhaps the perils of technology. What do you have to say?
Well, I think I watched some of it online several hours after this. We all woke up here on the East Coast of the United States, excuse me, to see this unfolding. We saw the fake victims, some of them porn stars, other individuals. There's no way to stop the trolls. We have now come to expect them. Social media, I think, was a place where people had an outpouring of grief. And for that, it was good. The trolls, we've come to expect it.
And as we sort of wrap up this discussion, I want to quote former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. She says, quote, "Our grief isn't enough. We can and must put politics aside, stand up to the NRA, and work together to try and stop this again." As we sort of wrap this up and try to put it in perspective, what at this point, in your opinion, is going to solve this issue of mass shootings in the United States, or can anything really be done? I mean, we've seen what happens at casinos and schools and movie theaters. What needs to be done so that we don't have another mass shooting to cover?
The only thing that you can do in this case is institute stricter gun laws. Will that happen? Well, we may see a debate, but I'm not holding out a lot of hope for that. Everything else may cut down the risks in some places, but the problem will always return. Until and unless we have control over who can own a gun and what kinds of guns they can own, we're going to see this problem, and it's going to be pronounced.
All right, Jim Clancy getting us the very latest perspective on this story from Atlanta, Georgia. Jim, thank you for those updates and perspective. We appreciate it.